anyway, that's a little bit about me, a little bit about my background. I'm enjoying a beautiful fall day here in New Mexico. Hopefully you've got gorgeous days where you are too. This is a nice time of the year to be enjoying the outdoors. We're going to be talking about something that I know is near and dear to your hearts. I'm assuming that I've got quite a number of human resources persons on this call. And with that assumption, I hope that's not too much of a thought process for all of us to assume that everybody is in HR. But I just want to put a new title to all of you because I believe that the new world of employee benefits requires a tremendous amount of ambassadorship. You are truly ambassadors of your organizations. You are a high-ranking official, and you truly are representing your corporations with the different strategies that you're having to put out with employee benefits these days. It's not an easy time. So anyway, I congratulate you for being on this call. This is an important time in our U.S. history for employee benefits. I hope that you gain a tremendous amount of knowledge, at least at planting some seeds of knowledge so that you can know that there's a resource here on your side to come back and draw some information. I know that it's a very confusing time. I know that a lot of HR folks are struggling for finding the best answers. There are so many webinars and newsletters and emails that are coming to all of us regarding what's happening with just the Affordable Care Act alone, but all the other things that go on with the compliance issues going along with open enrollment. So I just want to know, I feel your pain. I know exactly what you're going through because I see it every single day myself with all the correspondence that I receive, and trying to sort it all through and make knowledge out of it is really what my job is. I try to bring clarity to employee benefits. That's my tagline for my Business Vanguard resources. So we're going to dive into this, and we're going to start with slide number, I guess the next one is going to be slide number 4. Kelly, moving on. We're going to be talking about various things with you love in your job, you do what you love and love what you do. And is your company a great place to work? We've been hearing this all over America through the various polling about how it is that people become engaged in their work processes. I've talked to so many employers and so many employees about their engagement thought processes. And of course, it isn't like the old days of like my father who worked for 35 years in a hospital in Connecticut and retired with a defined benefit program and actually received that income for quite a number of years after retirement. He lived to 85 after retiring, exactly 65 with his DB plan. Those years are gone, and so, the employees themselves feel, that they need security, and that's why they're looking to the employers for that security, and that security comes down in the form of financial security. With this delivery of information today, we are talking about financial security. I happen to believe when you look at that, that pyramid of financial planning at the basic level of financial planning, employee benefits being health insurance and disability insurance and life insurance being at the bottom of that financial planning is so important for people to understand these days, because the prospective of looking at the world's future is not as pretty as what our parents all liked having, and our youngsters need some real education on what's going on for their financial futures. So hopefully you'll glean some information about some of the statistics. I'm not going to have a whole bunch of statistics. That, stats are kind of boring. So we'll have some, but it'll kind of lend a basis of our discussion today. And then we're going to talk about the open enrollment realities based on 30 years of doing open enrollment. I've been in the employee benefits world for 30 years. So we'll talk about that, and we'll have some other sources in there. And then we're going to be talking about some communication techniques. And then my little take some ibuprofen. I'm telling you to take 4 of them. I don't usually take 4 of them, but sometimes you really do need 4 of them to get rid of the pain of the open enrollment time period. And then throughout this webinar, we've got interspersed a little bit of a polling session. And the reason why I've got that going is because I really want to gain an understanding of how you guys are feeling about your open enrollment sessions. These are not questions that are going to be seen by anybody else. Nobody's names are going to be attached to them. But it also is a process for engaging you in this webinar, because webinars, I've been on a million of them myself. You can't see the person. all you can do is hear me. And so therefore, it's hard to stay engaged sometimes. You start typing on your computer and listening at the same time. So I'm going to try to keep you engaged with some scorecard questions throughout the process, and Kelly's going to bring those up for you guys to answer. We'll give you a couple of seconds to answer them, and then we'll move on to the next presentation slide. So going on to
Hey, Ann, if I wanted to jump in really quick, someone make sure that everyone is muted who's called in on their phone. Everyone, please take a moment to dial *6 if you are dialing in on your phone. I've got some restricted numbers and 541 area codes that are not muted, and we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. So we're going to get started with some stats. Kelly, could you bring up my stat slides, the first one? There we go. So here we go. Here's a little bit of a pyramid. This is coming from the Gallup poll of 2013, the State of American Workplace Report. I think a lot of you probably have already seen a lot of these stats that have come out of Gallup and out of Harris polls talking about the engagement problem that we've got in America with our American workers. 18% of them are actively disengaged, 52% of them are not engaged, and then 30% of them are engaged. And so, what goes along with that discussion of engagement is what really does make them want to be engaged. And so the other part of it is just talking about, my goodness, engagement isn't necessarily all that it can possibly be. You almost really want your employees to be committed. It's more like, no, we don't want them to be in this engagement process of prior to being married. We really want them to be married to the organization. We want them to be loyal. We want them to be passionate. We want them to be talking about our organization for a place that everybody loves to work at. And so when we look at these kind of statistics, we wonder where they come from, and it's a two-sided coin, obviously. We've got employees who are not engaged, and then we've got employers that are frustrated with the employees too, simply because of the different kinds of generations that we've got going on in the workplace. Plus, at the same time, we've got employers that have been downsizing and upsizing, making all sorts of changes simply because of the economy that we've been going through since 2008. So there are all sorts of things that drive the engagement of the employee, but hopefully we're getting back to the days where we can really drive their engagement through the employee benefit programs that we do offer to them. So then my next statistics slides after this one are talking about some things that have come from MetLife. I happen to like MetLife's annual employee benefit trend studies simply because MetLife does a really good job of explaining up front in their annual employee benefit trend studies how it is that they actually conducted their studies. There are all sorts of studies out there, but if you don't see how the methodology is behind the study, I always question really the trends and the numbers that actually come out there. Are they real? Are they numbers that are actually going to be meaningful, and are they something that you can apply to your overall organization? So this one says improved financial wellness can mean improved productivity. 82% of employees report some level of financial stress, which has been linked to health problems and contributes to increased health costs. 72% of employees are interested in their employers providing programs to help them make decisions about their financial needs. And so these are pretty high numbers as far as what your employees are feeling. The 82% one is a pretty severe number. And I think a lot of it is because the employees are feeling as if they don't really have any way of making sure that their health problems are taken care of other than through some of the medicinal ways of taking care of their situations. And it does definitely, the stress of financial does definitely get people into taking some medications that, I have one group actually that is about 900 employees, and we found in the top 10 medications that we're taking when we're doing an analysis on their renewal, that the top medication that the employees are taking are pain pills. And then, of course, the second medication that they're taking are stomach digestive type medications. And then the next ones are going to be the anti-anxiety medications. So we've got a lot of medical costs that are driven by who knows what. And financial stress is huge simply because of what we've been going through over the last number of years since 2008 on our overall economy. And then these 72 employees are interested in their employers providing a program to help them make decisions about their financial needs. This comes from a place of years and years of study of how employees really do trust their employers for making those kinds of decisions for them because they feel so inept themselves. So the next slide is showing us some other statistics that have been put out by SHRM, and SHRM is also a really great organization that does a fine job in their methodology in doing statistical work. But the interesting thing about these SHRM slides is they're a little bit in opposition to the engagement slide that you saw there with that Gallup poll. So here you go with employees are satisfied with their jobs. 81% of employees reported overall satisfaction with their jobs, and 79% indicated feeling determined to accomplish work goals and confident that these goals would be met. And 73 were certified or satisfied with working relationships. 70% were happy about using their skills and abilities, and 70% likes their manager or direct supervisor. So this gives you kind of a sense that maybe they are engaged, that maybe they do feel satisfied within their jobs. But then when you go to the next slide, you'll see that SHRM also found that that compensation and pay is where there is the biggest divergence in their answers. So here you are with, while 60% of the employees reported compensation and pay as a very important job satisfaction contributor, only 25% were actually very satisfied with the benefit. So and so I'm assuming, I'm guessing, but not really because I know it. But I'm assuming and guessing for your organizations because obviously I don't know your organizations. But a lot of the disengagement that goes along and with the satisfaction with benefits and compensation goes along with the lack of knowledge, the lack of engagement in wanting the knowledge or not knowing where to get the knowledge. And so that's what this presentation really is all about, and how to get the employees to participate in the process so that we have a better outcome on our open enrollment process going forward. So our next slide is going to be talking about your very first poll. We're going to take just a few seconds here for you all to get engaged in this webinar with the first question. And the first question reads, we have a structured open enrollment process that can show employees understand and are satisfied with their employee benefits. So we're just going to take a few seconds here for you guys to answer that. So anyway, we're going to move on to the next slide that goes into experience that I've had over the last 30 years as well as some findings that came through MetLife. So in talking about the open enrollment findings that I've found over the last 30 years is that, you know, the employer urgency may not be the same as the employee urgency. And so employees actually procrastinate on open enrollment for a number of reasons. And when you look at the reasons, they're real simple. They're not anything that's rocket science. But one of the things that I know that HR people say is that, you know, the employees really don't understand the importance of this. And it really isn't a very important time for them to be telling you what it is that they need to be doing for the upcoming year, for them to make their elections, for them to tell you about changes that have gone on in their personal lives. But the employees are confused, and they're kind of afraid to ask questions. They're not sure how that's going to be viewed by HR. They're not even sure how it's going to be viewed by their family members. And so they're confused, and they're afraid to ask questions, and then the employees just don't show up. They don't show up because they're not really thinking that it's important. So I think it's probably your priority as the leaders of your organization for the open enrollment process to make sure that the employees do know that it's important. And I'm sure you do that, but there are some proven techniques that do emphasize this a little bit more in today's market than what it was in yesterday's. So employees don't appreciate the benefits. They feel as if they're really owed the benefits. We've gotten into that kind of mentality here in America where we feel as if a lot of things are owed to us. And in the days of being totally grateful for everything that was given to us is a little bit different now than what it used to be. And so I think that we do have that sentiment among our employees where they feel as if they're owed the benefits. It's been in the employer umbrella for a number of years, dating back to the early 40s during the World Wars is when employee benefits were really introduced to the employer situations through the unions. And so the employers are in this betwixt and between now of, you know, looking at private exchanges and then looking at how employees are actually paying for their policies and how it is that we're supposed to be communicating the benefits and seeing how they actually buy into the benefits as much as the employers do. And if you see this poll down here by MetLife, you'll see that a percentage of employees not engaged in the annual enrollment process. When you've got under 500 employees, 35% of those employees are not engaged, and 22% of them of groups of 500, over 500 employees, are not engaged. And so that's a pretty low number of percentage points on employees actually being engaged in the overall open enrollment process going forward. So we do need to pay attention to this from all different kinds of levels. But one of them is that, you know, rumors rule. And this is, I think, disrespectful of the HR department in that they put so much work into all the time and effort that goes into the prior preparation of the open enrollment process, including updating their employee personal data and creating printed materials and creating web applications and carrying all sorts of clarifying communication on their person that has old and new legislation attached to it, and getting ready for vendor administration updates. All the things that you do prior to open enrollment is extremely important, but the employees tend to really like to talk to their peers. They tend to talk to their coworkers, or maybe they'll talk to a family member. And here's a perfect example. I've got a couple of kids that are Gen Yers. They're already in their workforce, and they're looking at their employee benefit programs, and they're asking me. Of course, they know that I'm proficient in this, but they are asking me. They're coming to me and saying, hey, can you make any sense out of what I just received in this packet of information, because I can't figure out what it is that I'm supposed to do here. And my eldest is 27, my youngest is 22. And they're just trying to figure out what it is that they're supposed to be choosing. And so I think that there's this general fear of them asking the questions because they're not wanting to look stupid. They're not wanting to feel as if they're imposing on HR. They just want to make sure that they're making the right decisions for their family. So the employees do everything at the last minute. Absolutely they do. I've seen this over and over again where they do not fill out the forms correctly. They don't hand them in on time. Their sense of urgency is not your sense of urgency. And until there's a crisis coming on, which means like the last day that they're supposed to give their information, does the urgency or the complacency then turn into an urgency? So when you look at what the percentage through this other MetLife story of employees who strongly agree that they need more help in understanding their benefits, the generation that needs more understanding, of course, is that Gen Y. They've been in that business for a shorter period of time than any of the other generations, and so they're feeling probably more lost than the other generations in trying to understand what it is that they need to know. When you're looking at the employer urgencies, again saying, you know, the information to the insurers get messed up in the data transfer, mistakes are costly to fix, time and effort, it takes forever to get things fixed. I actually had one employer, had about 1,200 employees. We had a major mishap with enrollment in the dental plan. It took us weeks to get that thing sorted out. And, you know, it's just no fun when you've got mistakes going on with open enrollment because it does mess up your payroll deductions, and it does take forever for insurer staff to get things going on. And so, and then the employees are afraid of making mistakes themselves. They don't know if they're making the right decisions, and the employees don't understand the importance of accurate data. They're trying to put information in that may have a different name attached to it simply because they've gotten a marriage going on here, and they don't even understand what the ramifications are if they don't have the right names attached to what they do. So if you do look at the little statistical poll there, 75% of my benefit communications effectively educate me, and I tend to be more loyal. Employees who do understand their employee benefits tend to be more loyal to their employers and getting back to that engagement discussion. And here 34% of them saying, hey, I don't know what's going on here, so therefore I really have lost my loyalty to that corporation. So moving on to the next slide, we're looking at, you know, payroll reconciliation is a long process, especially if you've got a number of different carriers and a number of different plan designs that you're providing to your employees. So it can go on for months. I do have some solutions for that with consolidated billing administrators that will actually consolidate all of your different carriers into one billing cycle and one billing piece, and they will actually make sure that everything does reconcile when they do send out the billing solutions. And plus, a good benefit administration system is absolutely becoming primary in doing open enrollment trying to do open enrollment with paper these days, of course, is just a nightmare. But a good benefit administration system would be a definition of communication electronically between you, the insurance company, and your employees, gathering their information electronically and making sure that it smoothly goes off into the insurers so they can get it into their systems, and all those technical languages are actually communicating with one another. And I do have a couple of great benefit admin systems that have worked out extremely well with a lot of my employers. So anyway, and then of course the employees do arrive into your departments with payroll deduction mistakes, and of course nobody likes payroll deduction mistakes. It's very frustrating for the employee, and it's very frustrating for payroll and for the administrators. And then we get into this other one, of course, that the broker or the consultant abandons the process and lets the carrier representatives take over. And I've seen that a number of times where, in particular with a couple of situations where I've seen with public entities where they have actually just asked the carrier representatives to come in and do the enrollment meeting sitting at tables in a cafeteria waiting for the employees to come up to them. And the employees really don't like talking about insurance to the insurance representatives themselves in a very public setting. They really would rather have it be in a private setting where they can actually have one-on-one conversations about what it is that's going on in their lives and how it is that they're going to make their decisions for their employee benefits this year. And MetLife has a study out there that says that there is a disconnect between the communication tactics employers use or perceive as useful and what employees actually want during the enrollment process. And I really agree with them that this is a missed opportunity to connect with your employees. If you've got an opportunity to have a specialized message go to your employees through a one-on-one meeting, this is an incredible opportunity to then increase the engagement and participation of your employees in your benefit program. And then dependent eligibility audits are becoming extremely popular with large corporations in particular because there's some dollars that need to be found. We've got all sorts of money hanging out on our tables waiting to be found. This is one of the biggest ones. If you haven't done a dependent eligibility audit in a while, it might be time for you to do it. But there are others that I have that bring some money back to the table as well that will help, in particular, some nonprofits and also help organizations that do self-funding of retirees. There's some really strong audits out there that can bring some real money back to the corporations. But this dependent eligibility audit is extremely important from the standpoint of let's really find out if we've got any kind of abuse going on with our program, with our dependents, and now with our new definitions of children in particular, we need to make sure that we are making sure that we're counting those children correctly, and we also need to make sure that with DOMA out there that we're also doing the right thing with DOMA. So, but the hardest part of the dependent eligibility audits, of course, is that the employees can't find their marriage certificates, nor can they find their birth certificates or their adoption paperwork, and so they procrastinated on it because they simply can't find this stuff, and they may even have to go back to the towns or the cities where they got married to get those certificates back, and it never seems like there's enough time to finish up those audits. And so that's, if you're going to do a dependent eligibility verification audit this year or next year, just make sure that there's a real build-up to that and making sure the employees know what they need to gather in order to make that audit really take place. Here's our next little poll that we've got going on. It says we have sufficient staff in our office to handle all of employee benefit communications at all of our locations. So Kelly, if you could launch that for me, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Okay. So in seeing our votes come in on that poll, we have quite a number that are in agreement saying that they don't have enough staff, or they do have enough staff. We also have a number that are saying that they somewhat disagree, and a few that are saying strongly disagree that they definitely don't have enough sufficient staff to handle. And I know that, particularly if you've got a number of different locations, it's hard for you to have enough staff to to get all of your work done through the open enrollment process. And so we're going to talk about some solutions with that. So this poll is now closed for voting. We're going to move on to the next slide. So here we go with, I don't know about you, but I have staff in my office that looks like that sometimes with open enrollment. It is a lot of work. And it usually starts with June. If you've got a January 1st effective date, maybe you even start earlier than that. Maybe you start as early as February in looking at maybe some statistical data on your loss ratios and making sure that you're maybe doing some value-based decision making on how it is that you're actually organizing your programs, being them dental, vision, and medical insurance. Maybe you're looking at your providers to see if they actually did the job that they were supposed to do last year. So it's a long process for open enrollment. And so, yeah, we're not loving that time period because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of data gathering, it's a lot of consultation to make sure that all of the little dots are lining up and making sure that we're actually getting things done on a timely basis. So here you go with another little poll that we have going on. We have an employee benefit trail that will satisfy the IRS and the Department of Labor. So we'll give that one a couple of seconds for you guys to chime in on that. So as the votes come in, I'm seeing that somewhat agree is the larger number. Agree is a pretty good sized number. I've got a few that are saying that they disagree. And so what that really comes down to is making sure that you do understand what's going on with the new IRS reporting requirements. And actually I was really expecting to see more people saying I disagree with this because, quite frankly, none of the forms that we've gotten from the IRS are finalized yet. And none of the instruction on the IRS on ACA has been finalized yet. I've got a couple of white papers that have been published by benefit attorneys in understanding these brand new forms that were coming out of IRS section codes 6055 and 6056. And so we've got, the 1095B, the 1094B. All of these different forms are now getting defined by the IRS, and they're really late. I actually had an opportunity to talk to an accountant as I was flying up to Michigan this past week. I was teaching for the International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans. The CPA that I was talking to had just come off a course teaching other CPAs about these new forms that need to be filled out by the employers, the health plans, and by the public exchanges. And I said, are your CPAs ready? Are they ready for liability? Are they ready for what it is that they're going to have to stand behind with their employer groups that they're filing? And she says, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Our CPAs, our accountants are extremely worried about what kind of lawsuits that they're going to be brought into with the filling out of these forms and what kind of data collection that the employers are actually having to do in order to get to the right answer in filling out these forms. So I have the young lady sitting there saying, count, count, count. We got to offer our benefits to 95% of our eligible employees. And so the key to that whole thing is making sure you know how to count. How is it that you're supposed to bring in all of your different businesses as far as your sister businesses and brother businesses, and making sure that you've got control groups in there, and making sure that you're actually counting your employees from your spreadsheet point of view. And there are very few payroll companies out there that have knocked this yet, and making sure that you're actually counting employees according to the definition of ACA, because there are different counting methods for different federal laws. The FAMLA has a different counting method from COBRA from ACA. So you have to know how to count your employees. You've got to be able to report them, and you've got to be able to report them on the forms, and you've got to report them correctly. And so if you're in a group size of over 100, you really should be paying attention to your open enrollment process right now for giving out the correct information and collecting the right information so that you can actually fill out your forms correctly, because you're going to be reporting in early 2016. March of 2016 is going to be a reporting date. Now, those that are in between that 50 to 99, there's supposed to be a certification form validating that you are not going to have to file your IRS reporting forms until 2017. But that certification form isn't available yet. So you don't, and if you're not counting your employees correctly, you might find that you are actually over 100. So there's a lot that goes into this process of counting and to be sure that you actually are in between this new transitional relief period and are actually in a position of being able to gather the right information. So this all then lends itself to how it is that you actually conduct your open enrollment meetings and understanding what it is that you have to be ready for with the Department of Labor or for an IRS audit that goes along with the Affordable Care Act or with ERISA or with any other Department of Labor audits that are coming through. Of course, the summary plan documents are very hot in the topics for the Department of Labor right now. So I'm going to get into a little bit of woo-woo stuff here with some transformational communication. The phenomena of communication depends not on what is transmitted, but on what happens to the person who receives it. And it really is all about the people. The very successful businesses in America really do make their people number one. They really do want to listen to their people. They want to reach down to the line employees and bring that straight up to the C-suite so that everybody really understands how the business is actually running. And so when you do have communication going on, we really need to make sure that the person who's receiving that information has enough information to move forward with whatever transition that they're going through. So when you look at an individual transformation, it is a fundamental shift in perspective or worldview that results in an expanded understanding of self and the nature of reality. So we are definitely in a time of self-discovery on so many different levels these days. And some of those levels definitely include financial planning and financial futures. And then when you look at the cultural transformation, which is the willingness to challenge the basic assumptions people have taken for granted as the right way to think and interpret, act, and be in an organization, yeah, for sure we're looking at the cultural assumptions that we have going on. The basic assumptions that we've taken for granted within our overall culture within our organizations aren't going to work anymore with the new day of benefits administration. So we're going to be looking at this not only from a cultural standpoint of are we communicating well, are people understanding us well, are they enjoying their jobs? This is all part of the culture. Are you providing a caring organization? The basic assumptions of just providing a place to work isn't necessarily the answer for your cultural thought process these days. We do need to look at some change that goes along with it. And then when you look at the organizational transformation that goes on, you know, the corporations can no longer take for granted that the old open enrollment techniques are going to keep on working and that they might have to go forward with a new idea, with new methods. So organizational transformation is changing form by improving the way the group works together through cultural transformation and inventing new organizational conversations, structures, skills, systems, processes, and technology that support the created vision and the agreed upon results to be promoted. And the agreed upon results is really the ticket on this one, because if you don't go into a project with what the agreed upon results are going to be, then you're never really going to get to where you need to be with your overall process of getting your job done. So what does this suggest? It suggests that the individual transformation, the corporate transformation, and cultural transformation are some of these decisions that are going to be going on during your open enrollment process. So you may have a new health plan with choices and prices. You may be introducing maybe a new skinny network that's going to require a whole new communication piece. Maybe you're going to be offering some new voluntary options that are going to fill in some financial gaps because you've had to go down the path of doing some cost shifting onto the employees with their out-of-pocket maximums and their co-insurance. Or maybe you're looking for new ways to cover the family members because you're actually doing, maybe you're adding a domestic partnership into your plan, or maybe you're trying to educate everybody on what DOMA means, or maybe you're trying to understand all the different kinds of options for the new definitions of children. And then if you're looking at employer versus public subsidies, you got to really educate your individual employees on that, because you don't want your employees running off to the public exchange thinking that they're going to get a better deal than what they're getting through you and then throwing you into the $3,000 penalty. So there's a big education curve on that one. And then there's always this discussion going. I hear this one all the time where the employees are talking, well, I'm going to go someplace else because their benefits are better. So am I going to stay on the job or am I going to leave simply because of my benefits? And then this 401k discussion is enormous. And we've got a little bit of a sample discussion on 401k communication at the end of this presentation so that you can get your arms wrapped around it. And we're talking about participation and contribution into 401k and all the things that go along with the positives and negatives of communicating that correctly. And then the self-completion of retirement, the life and disability policies, and then, of course, the wellness programs. There's all sorts of discussion about wellness programs, how it is that you're going to get your return on investment. Can you get your employees to participate in those programs, filling out HRAs and going to the gym and doing all the things that they're supposed to do? So this is all part of the transformational conversations that you're going to have that have decisions attached to them, where you might want to come up with a customized message for your employees. And you can't do all of these all at once, but you do need to come up with some kind of a customized message so that you get the outcomes that you want to have, the desired results. So here's a little poll. We train new hires on all employee benefits so that they know all of their options to make timely decisions. So go ahead, Kelly, you can launch that one for me. Okay, so as I look at the answers that come through here, we have the vast majority of them in the somewhat agree and agree columns. We've got a few that are in the somewhat disagree columns. So that makes me feel that as if you guys have a pretty good understanding of what you're supposed to do with your onboarding of new hires and making sure that they do understand what they need to know to make their employee benefit decisions going forward. So when we talk about custom communication, it really does need to be personal, private, and active and complete. And so custom communication really, I wonder if I really should change the word communication. It really should be custom conversations, because when you're talking about a one-on-one conversation with someone, they really do have the opportunity to ask questions. They can have body language. They can get some emotional messaging going on there. But primarily when you're coming up with a custom message, you really want it to come from the most important person in your organization. And who is that most important person? Is that going to be the CEO? Is that going to be the CFO? Is that going to be the VP of HR? Is that going to be the benefits manager? Who is the most important person in sending that message? And so you have to identify who that urgent person is so that when the person receives the message, they know that it's coming from the person who cares the most. And then who is the receiver? The employees of all classifications with diverse financial needs. Oh my goodness, you've got all sorts of different financial needs going on with employees that are ranging from executive down to the managers, down to the people who are on the line. So you have all different kinds of financial need discussions that are going on there, and of course your dependents. And then there's all sorts of studies that have been put out there, and the one that actually that proves that the one-on-one communication is through an organization called Eastbridge, and we'll see that slide in a minute, and that's why it's got a little red dot next to it. But all of these different methodologies do work. Group meetings, whether you have them mandatory or voluntary. If you've got group meetings that are voluntary, you're pretty much looking at a passive enrollment process. If you're looking at mandatory group meetings, then you're going to be looking at more of an active enrollment process. Newsletters, of course, get information out, but not everybody is going to read their newsletter, and they're not going to understand what they're reading. Brand new computer avatars are coming out now. Some of them are cartoonish and teaching people how to understand their benefits. Some of them are not so cartoonish. They're actually with real people talking to you. But that's also a very popular way. But the one-on-one meetings have the highest satisfaction rate in understanding the benefits and making sure that people then know what to do. And then this appreciative inquiry interview is that definition right there. So when you're talking about when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody that you feel as if is an intimate conversation, you want to make sure that you're feeling like you're in a very safe place. that it's free from harm or risk, that you're not going to have anybody threaten you with any kind of information back. You want to make sure that you can have the freedom to self-express, and you've got trustworthiness going on, and the information is definitely protected for privacy. And so that's what all of this is really coming down to as far as open enrollment is concerned, is making sure that everybody feels safe in the process. So here's another little poll. We have structured an open enrollment process that can show the C-suite that our employees appreciate their compensation. Had a lot of participation on this one. This one is showing that we've got more in the categories of strongly disagreeing and somewhat disagreeing. And so that process of having some kind of a reporting mechanism that allows the C-suite to see that the employees do understand their benefits and they appreciate their benefits is a real true results-oriented project that could be associated with your open enrollment, and then that would be a really wonderful end result to provide to your C-suite. So we'll end that poll now, Kel. That actually is I believe our last poll. So here we are with the ibuprofen slide. So taking 4 and sleeping really well, these are the things that I've identified as some real pain solutions as far as open enrollment is concerned. So first of all, you should create a personal custom message using essential employee data. Obviously, you're getting all that essential employee data from your census arrangements and using some of the statistical data that you're getting out of your health plans and looking at maybe some predictive modeling of how it is that you're going to move forward with your benefit plan, simply because you can see some of that employee data as far as claims are concerned, as well as overall demographic information. But other than that, the next thing you need to do is create a real solid project timeline with all the moving parts that go along with it. And of course, you can't foresee all of the things that can go along. And the longer that you've been doing it, the better off you are. But at the same time, people move, people change. The departments that have been doing open enrollment aren't always going to be there with the same people. So if you've got a Bible for open enrollment, which is exactly what I'm creating right now, I'm actually creating a program called iloveopenenrollment.com, where I'm actually writing the book, the guideline on all the different moving parts that go with open enrollment. Then you can easily transition. You can easily move from a person who may be retiring from their position in an organization to the new person coming in and educating that person on what it is that they're supposed to be doing with open enrollment in a very methodical way. And then thirdly, deliver the message within a stipulated time period of time to all the integrated parties, the employees, the dependents, the insurers, the payroll, the IT, and you can create videos on that message. If you want to have yourself as the person being the most important person in delivering that message, you can create a video of yourself so that people can see you and hear you and understand how important it is to you and important to the culture of the organization for you to take the time to create the video and actually send the message that you want so that you get the results that you want. Whoever the most important person in your organization in creating that video is really an incredible engagement opportunity for your employees to see, because obviously if you're busy putting together the whole program, you can't be going out to every site personally, and this is a way of people seeing you personally without you having to actually physically travel to those sites. And then the last one is creating the reporting criteria. This is the mission-driven return on investments, the proven results with the stipulated period of time. This is the key to the whole thing, making sure that you can actually prove that your open enrollment process was successful, making sure that you can actually talk to your organization C-suite about how successful the process was and what you think will happen going forward financially with the program. So here's a little bit of an example. We've got a few more slides to go. Thank you so much for hanging in with us. I know that we're off schedule here, but we do have the recording going on for those that are dropping off. But I do want to talk to you about retirement because the personal custom messaging that goes along with retirement obviously is going to require your fact finders and then delivering the right message based on these sample diverse populations. And I've identified these as being the most risky of the populations. Those who lack basic financial literacy, those who are family caregivers, the sandwich generations, the ones that are taking care of their parents as well as their children, are looking for the right message and trying to figure out how it is that they're going to pay for both. The female employees, why? The female employees, of course, their longevity of life is longer, and so you need to make sure that you understand what it is that you can provide to the female employees. The executives and the highly compensated, you need to figure out how it is that you're going to provide that retirement message along with the testing of the program to make sure that you are actually meeting the discrimination testing, and then that brings us back to the participation and contribution levels as well. And of course, all of those experiencing life changes with death and divorce and marriage and babies, and those, of course, that have special need dependents. All of those different kind of custom messaging things can be built into a message through a one-on-one communication that you might not be able to do. And the one thing that I hear primarily for folks that about retirement messaging is that they are very frustrated with the message of saying, yeah, keep the course, keep on putting the money in the account, even though the economy is bad. Well, everybody has a different way of thinking about investment in their lives, and the investment in one person's life is not going to be for the same for another. And so when you get into the custom communication, you can actually find out a few things about your employees. Maybe they think their mortgage is more important for an investment. Maybe they think their new horse farm is more important for an investment. Maybe they think that having more vacations is a better investment. Whatever their situation may be, you can find things out in that kind of discussion. So here we go in creating the project steps. So if you go back to my four-step process of creating the personal customer messaging and then creating the project timeline, then you get into this step-by-step process of commitment from the top with the ultimate goal, gathering the census data and carry information, creating the message that meets the employee's diverse needs, identifying the locations and learning stations, which is your safe environments, open enrollment period, talking about that. Step 6 is creating the employee meeting schedules and whether you're going to have them be mandatory and whether you're going to incentivize folks to be in those mandatory meetings. And there's all sorts of discussion as to whether those incentives are going to be better in the form of carrots or in the form of sticks. And I think that really by far the carrots are more important than the sticks, or at least they have the better outcomes than the sticks do. I did have one group that did a stick that said you're actually going to get written up and it's going to be in your personnel file if you don't show up to a meeting, and that certainly did get folks to the mandatory meeting. But that doesn't feel good. That's a little bit of a yucky feeling. And then step 7, of course, is the happy dance. Let go and let the rest be taken care of by the planner, the counselors, the Ben admin systems, and the payroll reconciliation folks. And really what I'm saying there is that you can hire a planner. I'm one of them. You can hire a planner to help you finish all this out. You don't have to be doing this all by yourself. You can actually get some outside help. This is one of the last messages that we had going with the ibuprofen thing. Let me go back to that slide so you can see it real quick. Create the reporting criteria or actually delivering the message. This is the delivering the message on retirement. One of my partners that I work with on employee communication has come up with this delivering the message on a 401k. And as you can see on these slides, you can say why save, your start, time and versus money, their investor quizzes, their personal projections, and then of course their enrollment. And this goes along with the 401k retirement or 403b retirement programs. And so delivering the message is really key, and then figuring out what's most important for your particular group with that messaging. And then, of course, the fourth pill is the reporting criteria, and that is super important for everybody that's involved in this open enrollment process to understand how successful you are actually in your open enrollment process. And it truly is a process. And as far as the engagement and participation of your employees are concerned, I would even wager that it's a marketing process. Making sure that your employees understand all the different ways that they can come to you and understanding their benefits is truly a marketing process. And you might even want to consider combining your open enrollment with your marketing divisions of your organizations. So this is my last slide. This is where you can find me, Ann Sperling at VanguardResources.co. I did not leave the M off of that. It is definitely a .co. It's not a .com. So if you have any personal questions that you'd like to run by me, you can certainly do that through my email address. We're going to send this PowerPoint presentation out to all of you, including the folks that had to drop off. Again, my sincere apologies for not being able to connect with you there for a few minutes with my computer going down. I'm looking at some participant questions that are coming through right now. Most of them are about that audio disconnect that I had going on. Let me see if there's anything else here that I can answer in the last few minutes that we have. I don't see any other questions, Kelly, that are relating to the presentation itself other than me dropping off.
Nope, I think that you're correct there, that we don't have any content questions at this moment. Folks, do feel free to contact Ann with questions, and we will be sending out the HRCI information as well as the recording of the presentation. We'll make it as seamless as we can so that you can pick up any pieces that maybe you missed during the drop-off. And again, my apologies as well. Unfortunately, when we involve technology, it's not always as perfect as we hope. But thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to check out our website. We've got more webinars, including one on the rising cost of specialty drugs coming up in October. And see if you can join us for a 2015 conference. Thanks, everyone.